Today we shall start chapter number 6, Decline of the Mughal Empire, and this chapter is very interesting, children. And Mughal Empire is one of the topic of the history which people find very interesting. Okay, that students like this chapter very much and they have curiosity to know more about this topic. Okay, so in this chapter we shall learn about the later Mughal rulers, that who were called as the later Mughal rulers, and what was the causes of the decline of the Mughal Empire. So we shall start the explanation. The great Mughal Empire, which was established by Babur, that reigned over the Indian subcontinent for about 2 centuries, began to decline and disintegrate during the first half of the 18th century after the death of Aurangzeb. So what is given? That the great Mughal Empire, which was established by Babur, over that reigned over the Indian subcontinent for about 2 centuries. That is the great empire, Mughal Empire. It was established by Babur. Okay, that Babur was the founder of this Mughal Empire, and Mughal Empire reigned over and this Mughal Empire reigned over the Indian subcontinent for about 2 centuries. Okay, then after that, what happened? After 2 centuries, what happened? That it began to decline and disintegrate during the first half of the 18th century after the death of Aurangzeb. That is, after the death of this Mughal Empire ruler Aurangzeb, the decline began of this empire. During the long reign of Aurangzeb, the last important Mughal ruler, the unity and stability of the empire came under question. Now, what is given? That during the long reign of Aurangzeb, Aurangzeb, he ruled for a long time over a big region, and the last important Mughal ruler, that Aurangzeb is one of the last important Mughal the unity and stability of the empire came under question. That is, after that, after the rule of Aurangzeb, that how the decline started, how the decline began of the Mughal Empire. So that was the main question, and the unity and the stability of the empire came under question. That what happened exactly, that people or the Mughal Empire, how it started to disintegrate, that how it began to decline. Then, despite his harmful policies, the strong Mughal administrations and army managed to keep the empire together. Now, what happened? That despite his harmful policies, that is, his policies were very strict, that Aurangzeb's policies were very strict, very harmful, and the strong Mughal administration and the army managed to keep the empire together. That is, the army which was there, soldiers who were there, so they tried to keep the empire together. They tried that it may not come to decline, it may not disintegrate. But Aurangzeb's death in 1707 was followed by a war of succession among his 3 sons, out of which Bahadur Shah first emerged victorious. But what actually happened, that in the year 1707, when Aurangzeb was dead, okay, after his death there was a war of succession between his 3 sons, and in that war Bahadur Shah first, one of his sons, emerged as victorious. Then next point is later Mughals, that is, who are called as the later Mughals. The Mughal rulers who succeeded Aurangzeb, starting with Bahadur Shah first, were referred to as the later Mughals. Okay, now who are they? That the Mughal rulers who succeeded Aurangzeb's, starting with Bahadur Shah first, were referred as the later Mughals, and they were Bahadur Shah first, then Jahadar Shah, Farooq Siyar, Muhammad Saab Shah, and then Ahmad Shah, Alamgir II, and Shah Alam II, Akbar II, and Bahadur Shah Zafar from 1837 to 1857. Okay, so the years is given next to the names of these Mughal rulers, that is for how long they ruled during that time. Then the successors of Aurangzeb were weak and could not hold the empire. It was during the reign of the later Mughals that independent kingdoms rose in every part of India, and the Mughal empire shrunk down to a few square kilometers around the seat of power, Delhi. Okay, now what is given here? That the successors of Aurangzeb were weak, that the successors of the Aurangzeb were weak and could not hold the empire. That is, they were unable to hold the empire, Mughal empire, and it was during the reign of the later Mughals only that independent kingdoms rose in every part of India. That is, there were independent kingdoms which came into existence, which rose in every part of India. That is, it was during the period, during the time of the later Mughals. The Mughal Empire shrunk down to a few square kilometers around the seat of power, Delhi. And then after that, what happened? The Mughal Empire, which was there, it got shrunk down to a few square kilometers around the seat of power, that is Delhi. After the death of Aurangzeb, his son Bahadur Shah first ascended the throne after defeating his two brothers in 1707. That is, in the year 1707, after the death of the Aurangzeb, his three sons who were there, they fought together war of succession, and in that war, Bahadur Shah first was there. He became victorious and he ascended the throne after defeating his two brothers. He was succeeded by Jahandar Shah. His reign saw the rise of a group of nobles headed by the Sayyid brothers, namely Sayyid Hassan Ali Khan Barha and Sayyid Hussain Ali Khan Bhara. Now, what is given? That he was succeeded by Jahandar Shah, that is Bahadur Shah first who was there. So he was succeeded later on by Jahandar Shah, and his reign saw the rise of a group of nobles headed by the Sayyid brothers, namely, now who are the Sayyid brothers? That Sayyid brothers are Sayyid Hassan Ali Khan Barha and Sayyid Hussain Ali Khan Barha. So they two put together were known as Sayyid brothers, very important, and they became so powerful that they could dispose or install anyone on the Mughal throne at their own will. That is, they became together very powerful, that they become so much powerful that they could dispose or install anyone on the Mughal throne at their own will, that is, as they wish they can do. Hence the Sayyid brothers are also referred to as kingmakers. Okay, Sayyid brothers are also referred, they were also known as kingmakers because they were used to make anyone as the Mughal empire, or they were used to dispose also anyone if they liked. So they were called as kingmakers, Sayyid brothers. Within a year, Jahandar Shah was disposed and Farooq Siyar was installed on the throne of the Mughal Empire in 1713. So, after 1 year only, after the 1 year of the ruling of Shah Jahandar Shah, what happened? That Farooq Siyar was installed on the throne. Okay, and then in 1719, Muhammad Shah ascended the throne and ruled till his death in 1748. And then after Farooq Siyar, who ascended the kingdom, who ascended the throne? Muhammad Shah, and he remained on the throne. He kept on ruling till his death in the year 1748. He was a pleasure loving king and is often referred to as Rangila. So he was very pleasure loving king, who? Muhammad Shah. Okay, and he was also known as Rangila, meaning fun loving. he managed to curtail the power of the Saeed brothers, that is Muhammad Shah, who was there. That is, he tried, he managed, he tried, and he was success also he got in curtail, that is in cut down the power of the Saeed brothers. Because Saeed brothers, what they were doing, that is they were all the time trying, and they were all the time making the kings to rule over or to dispose from the throne according to their own will. So, however, in the mid 18th century, the political scenario of India began to change with the advent of the British. So, in the mid 18th century, the political scenario of India began to change completely with the advent of the British, because Britishers who were there, that is, they started to come to our country, and as they came, so by the mid of the 18th century, the scenario of our country completely changed. In 1803, Delhi itself was occupied by the British Army, and the then Mughal Empire Emperor Shah Alam II was reduced to a proxy ruler under the country. And then Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II was reduced to a proxy ruler under the control of the British East India Company. This continued with the succeeding Mughal rulers until Bahadur Shah Zafar, the last ruler of Mughal Empire, was overthrown and later exiled to Rangoon in Burma, now Myanmar, after the Sepoy Mutiny of 1857. Now, what is given that then Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II was reduced to a proxy ruler only under the control of the British East India Company. That is, when there was set up of British East India Company, so the ruler who was there, Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II, so he was reduced to a proxy ruler. That is, his most of the reign which was there, most of the area of his ruling area, that was taken away, and he was not having much power with him. So this continued with the succeeding Mughal rulers until Bahadur Shah Zafar, the last ruler of Mughal Empire. Now it is very important to remember that who was the last ruler of the Mughal Empire. It was Bahadur Shah Zafar, and he was overthrown by the Britishers and later exiled to Rangoon. That is, he was exiled, he was banished from his kingdom and was sent to Rangoon in Burma. Now Burma is known as Myanmar. After the Sepoy Mutiny of 1857, that is, after the Sepoy Mutiny case, which was in the year 1857, it was after that this Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar, he was exiled. He was exiled to Rangoon. Exiled to Rangoon. This marked the formal end of the Mughal Empire. The nominal Mughal rule was now replaced by the British Raj in India. Now this marked the formal end of the Mughal Empire. That is when the last ruler Bahadur Shah Zafar was exiled to Rangoon. So this was the end of the Mughal Empire, and the nominal Mughal rule was now replaced by the British Raj in India. That is, now Britishers had completely occupied India and started ruling. With the decline and the fall of the Mughal Empire, it is said that India transitioned from medieval to modern period. And with the decline of Mughal Emperor only, what happened? That it is said that India transitioned, that is, the India completely changed from medieval to modern period. That is, now during the Britishers only, when Britishers started ruling, so they only made lot of changes in our country, and our country proceeded to modern period. Now after this we shall learn causes of decline of Mughal Empire. The mighty Mughal Empire disintegrated and declined due to several factors. Now, there are several factors which are responsible for the disintegration and decline of the Mughal Empire. So, first point is given: Aurangzeb's policies. Although the actual end of the Mughal Empire happened much after Aurangzeb's time, during his reign the unity of the empire was severely hampered. Aurangzeb's religious orthodoxy and his hostile policies towards the Hindu rulers damaged the stability of the Mughal Empire. So, what is given? Although the actual end of the Mughal Empire happened much after Aurangzeb's time, that is, much after Aurangzeb's time, this Mughal Empire came to an end, but it was during his reign only. The unity of the empire was severely hampered, that is, the unity of the empire was very much disturbed and disrupted. Aurangzeb's religious orthodoxy and his hostile policies towards the Hindu rulers damaged the stability of the Mughal Empire. That is, his policies were so strict towards the Hindu rulers that it damaged the stability of the Mughal Empire. The Mughals had built and retained their vast and stable empire by practicing religious tolerance and maintaining friendly relations with the Rajputs. However, Aurangzeb reversed these policies and shook the foundation of the Mughal Empire. Now, after this, points are given. First one, Aurangzeb rejected the demand for regional autonomy by the Marathas and led a long and strenuous campaign against them. This Deccan campaign drained the source of the empire and ruined trade in Deccan. So, what was there? That is, Aurangzeb rejected the demand for regional autonomy by the Marathas. In this way, so he became opponent of Marathas. The Rajput Rajas and their military support was one of the pillars of Mughal strength. That the Rajput Rajas who were there and their military support to Aurangzeb was one of the pillars of Mughal strength. And Aurangzeb's hostility towards the Rajputs led to loss of Rajput support and loyalty, because Aurangzeb was very much hostile towards the Rajputs, kings and Rajas, so he lost their support and loyalty. Then next point, the Jat and Sikhs uprisings, which were supported by the peasantry, challenged the strength of Aurangzeb's administration. That the Jats who were there, the Jats and the Sikhs, they were uprising day by day, and which were supported by the peasantries. That is, the peasantry class which was there, the farmer class which was there, the lower class which were working in the fields. So they supported Jats and the Sikhs. So they challenged together the strength of the Aurangzeb's administration. Next, turn the page. Now, next point is given, wars of succession. That wars of succession is also one of the major causes for the decline of the Mughal Empire. So, first that we read is Aurangzeb's policies, that his policies were very strict. That though after Aurangzeb's death, several other Mughal emperor kings were there to rule, but it was from the Aurangzeb's time only, because of his policies, the kind of strict policies that he had made, that was also one of the major causes for the decline of the Mughal Empire. Now, next cause is wars of succession. That is, several wars of successions were held for the throne. So that is also one of the major cause for its decline. So while Aurangzeb left the empire tangled in many problems, the situation aggravated further by the ruinous of wars of succession which followed his death. In the absence of a fixed rule of succession, the Mughal dynasty broke into civil war between different claimants to the throne after the death of the ruler. These civil wars were extremely fierce and destructive in nature, creating a huge burden on the treasury. So what is given? That while Aurangzeb left the empire tangled in many problems, that is, Aurangzeb had left his empire tangled in many problems, that is, it was in facing several problems during the Aurangzeb time when he was dead. The situation aggravated further by the ruinous of wars of succession, that is, after the death of Aurangzeb only, his own three sons who were there, they fought for the throne, and later on the other kings who were there, they also fought for the throne. So in this way, what happened, that it wasted lot of money, and it created huge burden on their treasury. So in the absence of fixed rule of succession, the Mughal dynasty broke into civil war between different claimants to the throne after the death of the ruler, and these civil wars were extremely fierce. That the civil wars which took place during that time, so that was very violent, very fierce and destructive in nature, and it created a huge burden on the treasury. Then next cause for the decline of Mughal Empire is weak successors. That Bahadur Shah's short reign was followed by a string of weak and luxury loving rulers. That is, after Bahadur Shah Zafar, the kings who took over the throne, so they were very luxury loving rulers. That is, they were not so efficient in ruling, they were not having good policies, and they were very weak in nature. So many string of weak rulers came together after Bahadur Shah Zafar. So these weak-willed rulers became pawns in the hands of powerful and ambitious nobles. Provincial governors took advantage of the weakness of the central authority and set up their independent provinces. That the provincial governors during that time who were there, so they took advantage of this weakness, that is, weakness of the Mughal emperors who were there during those time, and they set up their independent provinces. Then next point is given, next factor is given, next cause is given for decline of Mughal Empire is deteriorating nobility. The strength of the Mughal Empire was the organization of its nobility. However, the character of the nobility deteriorated. The nobles were interested in monopolizing offices and promoting their own interests rather than serving the state. This selfishness of nobility led to corruption in administration and economic bankruptcy. So what is given? Next point, next cause for the decline of the Mughal Empire, that deteriorating nobility. That is, the strength of the Mughal Empire was organization of its nobility. However, the character of the nobility deteriorated. The nobles were interested in monopolizing offices and promoting their own interests rather than serving the state. That is, the nobles who were there during the time of Mughal emperor, so they were very much interested in monopolizing. That is, they were interested in monopoly office, that they wanted to have their own rule and promoting their own interest rather than serving the state. That is, they didn't want to serve the state, they want to have their own monopoly of rule. This selfishness of the nobility, that is, this selfishness of the nobles, of the noble class, led to corruption in administration and the economic bankruptcy. That is, they themselves were there, they were cheating to the Mughal rulers during those time, the noble class, which is there. So that was also one of the major causes for the decline of the Mughal Empire. Now next factor is given, next cause is given, court politics. The Mughal court comprised four groups of nobles who hailed from different regions. That is, four group of nobles were there in the Mughal court. First, Iranis, they were from Persia. Then Turanis from Transylvania, then Afghans from the northwestern border of the kingdom beyond the river Indus, and fourth were Hindustanis, and they were natives. So there was constant struggle for power between these four groups. That these four groups which were there, they were constantly fighting with each other. They were struggling to get power, and this rivalry affected the administration of the kingdom, and petty power politics undermined the prestige of the Mughal emperor. That is, those nobles who were there, four nobles who were there from the different class, from the different regions, so they themselves wanted to have more power, each one of them. So they became enemies of each other, and this also harmed the prestige of the Mughal emperor. Okay, now next is Jagidari system. Now in next video we will continue from this point, Jagidari system.